Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 105th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the Revel Advertising Studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How are you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing great, Cameron. How are you?
I'm doing well. Let's hear why you're great.
Oh, I'm great because, well, there's a lot of good stuff going on, but it's September.
Oh.
And you know.
Oh, I know.
I like a good September.
Yes.
So
yeah.
It's always this time of the year.
I can't even say it.
I'm ready for that. I'm ready for that cool down. I'm all about those in between seasons.
Spring
and fall.
You hate summer.
Kyle's favorite time of year.
I do not hate
he
summer.
He hates it, listeners.
Okay. Wow, you guys are gonna really get me riled up tonight. I do not hate summer, but I definitely like by August or so. I'm ready. I'm ready for something a little different. As with winter too.
So like out of the four seasons, you'd rank summer
probably third.
Really?
Third or fourth.
Well,
maybe like a 3.5.
What's the other one that could be fourth?
Winter.
Oh, right. You said
you have a hard time deciding between summer and winter
as worst.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez, Pete.
It's unbelievable, honestly. Well, I'm happy for you that it's September. I'm happy for me too. Mm-hmm. As I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate jeans and long sleeve weather, or even one or the other. A nice long sleeves with shorts, a nice jeans and t-shirt.
It's beautiful things about both.
Yeah. And, when you're younger, when I was younger, I could be outside swimming in a pool most of the summer.
Summer was the best by far because it meant no school.
Oh, yeah, of course. But when you don't have the ability to just go to the pool whenever you want, it makes summer a little bit worse. Mm-hmm. Well, Kyle, we've got some news to talk about, and then we're going to break down pretty much the entire football roster, make sure everybody's familiar with the players as we get closer to the first kickoff against Alabama. And that brings me into my first news item. The time and TV channel have been announced for that first game. It's going to be primetime on ESPN. Everybody's going to have a good seat and have good access to watch Missouri, most likely get throttled by Alabama.
At 6 p.m., correct?
Yes.
So, yeah, that does tell you that whoever's making these choices of television channels deems that to be a pretty good matchup. Yeah. Probably one of the better ones of week one.
Better than any of the Pac-12 or Big Ten matchups, I can tell you that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some interesting storylines. I mean, anytime you're playing Alabama, that's obviously a team that's pretty well known by most college football fans, but just a new coach at Missouri. So
beautiful Columbia, Missouri.
Yeah, there's some storylines.
So mark your calendars. 6 p.m. the 26th, Alabama. What else news related? Did you watch Michael Porter Jr. and the Nuggets move on to the second round of the NBA playoffs?
I watched the fourth quarter last night. It was a pretty low-scoring game, actually, comparatively to the rest of the series. And
incredibly low-scoring. I saw games. I saw people on Twitter making fun of it, saying things like this was some 90s Pacers-Knicks type stuff. Yeah,
it really was a great series, though. Obviously, went to Game 7. Donovan Mitchell, Jamal Murray were really battling it out all series, and some Mizzou battles with MPJ, Jordan Clarkson. So
making plays.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the finish of that was kind of nuts.
That was nuts.
Denver went up 2.
They got it. Yeah,
Donovan Mitchell had a chance. He was driving to try to tie it and just lost the ball. Mm-hmm. And then Jamal Murray decided to pass it off to try to score.
Yeah, with like 5 or 10 seconds left, they tried to score.
Could have run clock and gotten fouled, go to the free throw line. And the guy did have a wide open layup and just missed it. Mm-hmm. And then Mike Conley got the ball and had a decent look for like a desperation 3-pointer to win the game. And it was on target, just rimmed out.
Yep. So now the Nuggets have to play the Clippers in the second round of the playoffs.
I'm going to be rooting for the Nuggets big time. Sorry.
I was already rooting for the Nuggets, but as I also, of course, will be in round 2. I don't think it'll go as well.
The Jazz with that Mizzou connection, though. You mentioned Jordan Clarkson, also head coach Quinn Snyder, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And like I mentioned to you guys yesterday, both teams with great uniforms, which is very important as well.
When the Jazz break out those purple uniforms with the mountains, oof.
It's beautiful.
Yes. But me being a Pacers fan, I kind of don't ever want Paul George to win a playoff series ever. And I kind of feel like Kawhi did. I'm not a big fan of Kawhi either. I mean, he was kind of a pest when he was in the Eastern Conference, and I don't know.
Good,
I want to see Lakers Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals.
That'd be cool.
I'm a LeBron fan.
Yeah, I really just think the Nuggets are gonna come up pretty short. They've got some nice pieces, but Clippers are very good.
Yeah. All right, let's get a little bit more on topic here. Georgia quarterback Jamie Newman opting out of the season. Forgive me, I haven't researched Georgia too terribly much, but I believe he was in line to be the starting quarterback. He transferred from Wake Forest, and I think Georgia fans were looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think he's probably going to be a top draft pick, which obviously explains why he's probably opting out. But they are going to have to find somebody else to play quarterback, which Georgia's still probably going to steamroll everyone in the East, but it's certainly going to make things a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, anytime a division rival loses a big player,
like 2 weeks before the season.
Yeah, and even better that it's not to injury. I don't have any problem being happy about it. Some commitment news. We have some upcoming commitments. Football, on the football side, Kyron Montgomery. What position did he play?
Defensive end.
Committing this coming Saturday?
Yes. Defensive end, 4-star from Indianapolis. He has been, if you pay attention to recruiting, you are well acquainted with this young man. Kind of been hearing about him for a long time. Seems like Mizzou's in the driver's seat here. It feels like they have been for a while. He's kind of circled the beginning of September as his time that he would commit for a little while now, but I would be surprised if he went somewhere else other than Mizzou. But that would be a pretty big recruiting win there as a 4-star.
Yeah, keep it rolling. And then on the basketball side, Zach Hicks, who we've talked about on the podcast, is a forward who will be committing September 4th, so in two days from when we're recording this. Most people think his spot on the Mizzou roster is gone thanks to the commitment of Sean Dura-Gordon. We still lists Missouri as a finalist, but that happens sometimes, and we'll see in a couple days where he ends up. And then also Legend Geeter, same kind of situation. I think maybe a slightly higher chance that Mizzou maybe still be in the mix. I still think Dura-Gordon kind of took that spot of I think he's the 6'7" forward that Konza was looking for. Mm-hmm. But Legend Geeter posted a top 5 of Mizzou, Georgetown, Duquesne, Providence, and Western Michigan.
Yeah, I agree that I think Missouri has moved on from both of these guys. And I truly think that Missouri got their guy out of that group. I think they really wanted Sean Dura-Gordon and were able to land him. Like you said, Legend Geeter still has Missouri in his top 5, even though I don't really think that's an option. And Zach Hicks is deciding between Richmond and someone else that I can't remember, but it's not going to be Missouri for sure.
Gotcha. Any other news you can think of?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Flew through that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we're going to move on to our topic of the show, which is breaking down the Mizzou football roster. And I need to let everybody know that this week's topic of the show is sponsored by twitch.tv/itsyeti. If you want to watch some Call of Duty gameplay, maybe a little bit of Fall Guys, check them out. One more time, that's twitch.tv/itsyeti. Shout out to Term. And if you or your business wants to sponsor a future topic of the show, send us an email at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
Oh, you almost let me do it.
I wasn't going to let you mess it up.
Thank you, Yeti.
So, Mizzou roster. Last season, disappointment. Offense fell apart down the stretch. Defense was really good. Mm-hmm. Lost a lot of important pieces on both sides of the ball. Where do you want to start? Where do you think is the best place to start when we're talking about this Mizzou roster?
Well, I guess we can talk about what do you think is the position group that Missouri has the greatest strength this year?
Running back.
I agree. Larry Roundtree, Tyler Beatty, pretty much staples of this team the last couple of years. I don't see that changing. obviously we got a quarterback battle. That's something that we haven't dealt with in a long time. I think that that's something we know pretty much the same amount as we did like 6 months ago. I don't think we'll know until we see somebody trot out there.
And Drinkwitz has publicly stated he's not going to really give anybody a clue.
Mm-hmm. I don't really think that we can go wrong with either of the two guys. I think that they both bring a little bit of different styles of play, but I would be perfectly fine with either one of those guys. I think they're both talented.
I'm gonna have to stop you right there. You started that sentence by saying, I lost it already. You said, I don't think they can go wrong with either option. I totally understand the sentiment, but I have to say they absolutely can go wrong with either one of them. And I'm nervous whichever way they go. So
you're nervous regardless, or you're nervous about a specific option?
I'm nervous either way.
Oh, nice.
No matter who they pick.
Good place to be.
I'm going to be nervous about it. So like the other side of the coin that you flipped. And I can totally see what you're saying. Like there's decent options and
things to like about both.
Yes, they're going to pick one and hopefully go full steam ahead, and it'll probably be fine. And I agree. However, I'm going to be incredibly nervous that Missouri, for the first time in a really long time, has not just had a guy that kind of everybody knows is the guy and that fans can just be confident is, not, I guess we're talking about quarterbacks now. So fans are going to be thinking every time there's a poor performance early in the season, this other guy's here.
I agree. That will become exhausting.
That's not something I'm looking forward to. And that's what makes me nervous. If I almost wish it was like I would almost rather there not be that other option if things start to be shaky. I don't know. I just want whoever the coaching staff picks to be serviceable and not let us doubt him and the fan base, start clamoring for the backup, because that's just insufferable.
I agree. Do you think they'll see them use both of them in some way, or do you think they'll just pick a guy and run with it? I wish we really knew like how close the competition was. For all we know, it's very possible Coach Drinkwitz knows this guy is by far, maybe not by far, but this is the clear choice, and he's going to be the starter. It's very possible he already knows. But, okay, well, gun to your head, who's the starter day one and why? Or just...
I think it's Sean Robinson because of his experience at the D1 level. And I honestly was thinking about that exact question when I was prepping a little bit, and I wasn't sure what I would have said. And I think I don't like that it's kind of just conventional wisdom to go with the guy that has started multiple games at the D1 level, but it just seems like that's how it usually ends up, and for a good reason. I mean, there's a lot to learn from starting games in a Power 5 conference, and Bazelak has a start. He has one half of that under his belt. So
I think it's going to be Bazelak for the upside. We'll see what happens. I think obviously, yeah, Sean Robinson has the experience. He's been fairly mediocre in his experience, but he's
also been injured and been in kind of a weird situation at TCU.
Yeah, he did work with the current offensive coordinator as well. So there's some familiarity, there's some experience, but I think Connor Bazelak maybe offers some upside and some longevity potentially of having multiple years to play at Missouri.
I definitely hope you're right. I honestly, either way, I hope whoever it is, I hope they separate themselves and just remove all doubt, especially once the games start. If they haven't leading up to the first game. And honestly, going up against Alabama week 1, that's not going to help anything.
We're probably not going to know for like at least a game or two.
Yeah, really. Withhold judgment till after week 2 at least.
That's fair.
Anything else you want to say about quarterbacks? You do have Taylor Powell and Brady Cook sitting there as further backup options. You think we'll end up with a COVID situation where we have to dig deep into the depth chart at all? Obviously, you can't predict that, but
if there is a year where we have 2 capable starters, this is probably a pretty good year for that. I hope we don't, but
yeah,
it's certainly possible.
Hopefully, illness doesn't sweep through the quarterback room completely.
That would be bad. It is going to be fascinating just for not only Missouri, but just
imagine that happening to any team.
College sports in general. I'm sure there's going to be some kind of happening like that where a whole position group on a team is wiped out and they have to get creative or something. That will happen, I'm sure.
We've also got Michael Wilson on the roster,
there you go.
And he'll be in the wide receiver room.
Yeah, he's like our secret weapon. Like nobody knows about him.
Yeah,
he's gonna just play quarterback one.
Keep him away from the quarterbacks, and make sure that he never goes near them, just in case something does go through there.
There you go.
He'll be safe. We started talking about running backs, so we jump back there real quick. It's so nice to look over at the different media things that come out, the social media posts, and see Larry Roundtree sitting there.
Yeah.
A familiar face who has been incredibly productive, not as much last season, and then to also have Tyler Beatty, just 2 guys. I almost wish that we had, I love both of those guys. I almost wish we had one of their, the experience that one of them has at a different position instead of being slightly redundant at running back. But if you're going to be redundant in one area, that's not a bad place to be.
Yeah, at least they offer different skill sets. Obviously, Larry Roundtree is more of the north and south runner, and Tyler Beatty's kind of the pass catcher. So there is kind of a nice 1-2 punch there. You said you do like Tyler Beatty. You love Tyler Beatty?
No, that's you.
Oh, well, you said you love them both. So I just want to make sure.
I do too.
Okay, we both love Tyler Beatty.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I have some statistics regarding Larry Roundtree and his career at Mizzou that you might find interesting. He finished last season with a new career rushing yards total of 2,748 yards. Also 26 career rushing touchdowns. Yardage, that has him 6th all-time in Mizzou history. And touchdowns, he's 8th all-time. I wanted to ask you where he'd end up on this list, but when you hear these numbers, there's no real debate to be had. He's 23 yards from 5th place, passing Henry Josie, 206 yards from 4th place, 278 yards from 3rd place, 450 yards from 2nd place, 1,541 yards from 1st place, of course, Brad Smith.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Running quarterback, playing pretty much 4 full seasons.
Yeah. I mean, that is a reason. Obviously, Larry Roundtree's been a great player, but he's played 3 full years.
Yeah.
And he might potentially get to play 2 more full years with this.
Gosh, I didn't even think about
COVID
that
situation.
That would wreck the record books.
That is something. Yes, that is something that I've thought about and has been discussed on online forums. I've seen. What do we even do about records? If we have players that come back for a 5th year and break a record, because obviously Larry Roundtree will be someone that will run away with the touchdown and probably yardage records if he comes back for 2 more full years.
Yeah, that would be insane. I think obviously he's gonna be solidly in 2nd place all by himself for the career yardage mark. As far as touchdowns go, I think he's going to be in that same ballpark. He just needs 4 touchdowns to go from 8th to tied for 4th. And he'll probably end up in 4th place by himself because he would need 12 to be tied for 3rd. His sophomore season, he ended up with 11. So somewhere between 4 and 12 makes sense.
Who's first all time in touchdowns?
I didn't write it down. Probably... I don't even want to say. We'll have some listeners that I've already made people mad by not knowing who it is.
I put you on the spot.
I'll tell you. I got the record book right in front of me. I should have just looked at it before I said I don't know. Well, it's still Brad Smith first.
I thought it might be.
But Zach Abram, who played from 2000 to 2003, comes in at 2nd with 40.
That's a lot.
Yeah, Brad Smith, 45 rushing touchdowns.
That doesn't even make sense.
That's pretty nuts. So, Larry Roundtree, he's
good
right there at the top of the record books. Although when you look at these running backs that make up the career yardage list, I'm struggling to find one that played 4 full seasons.
Yeah, that's definitely not as common in football, is that you have players who play for 4 full years.
And have like 4 full seasons worth of carries,
Yeah.
basically. But yeah, to get up there at the very top of the list, you're going to need all 4.
Mm-hmm.
I love tracking those records. And in recent years, we've had some players like Jamon Moore and Jonathan Johnson, obviously Drew Lock, put up some numbers over their career that were
Alberto,
pretty noteworthy, and over the course of just one season. So I like tracking those. Unfortunately, Larry Roundtree, the only guy that will be tracking for those kind of things. Maybe Nick Bolton for like single season tackles, something like that. But yeah, I'm really excited about the running backs. I wanted to get your opinion on one Elijah Young. He's an incoming freshman, and people are expecting pretty big things for his career at Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm wondering what you think about him just for this upcoming season.
Yeah, I think that he's a very good shot of being third string running back. I think that he might be involved in special teams as well. But yeah, very special back. I think, like you said, has a chance to be very good in his career at Missouri. But I'm not sure he's gonna probably see a lot of playing time this year just because of all the experience in front of him.
You think between running back duties and special teams, he burns the red shirt?
In a normal year, probably yes. With what are we even calling this? This like eligibility.
Oh yeah.
Whatever this is. I'll just say yes. I think he burns the red shirt.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and then we'll revise all of that when we figure out what exactly is going on with all of that. Man, that's so bizarre. And I'm still not thinking about this correctly. It's already decided.
Yes.
That all of these players will have another year of eligibility.
I believe that is 100%. I know, it kind of blows your mind a little bit.
Well, yeah, every time I'm thinking about it, like I think about it and then it doesn't really set in.
Yeah.
And I just, oh yeah. And they're like, wait a second.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I don't know. For the sake of the record books, hopefully Larry Roundtree has a great season and then goes on to the NFL. So we don't have to.
More worried about the integrity of the record book than like an incredible player coming back from Mizzou.
I mean, in all seriousness, Larry Roundtree moving on no matter what. Not no matter what. Holy crap.
It's going to take a while.
All right. I'm no longer going to be thinking about that.
It's kind of like whenever you have like a day off at work tomorrow, like the next day, and you're like, oh man, I got to go to work tomorrow. Ooh, no, I don't.
Yeah.
Like, it like takes a while to like get in your head.
Okay. So for the rest of this conversation, unless I say otherwise, I'm pretending like it's a normal season.
That's fine.
Okay. Just for my sanity, just so I can get through this episode.
Okay. I believe in you.
Larry Roundtree's gone. Tyler Beatty and Elijah Young.
That'll be a pretty nasty combo.
Another good combo. And then Elijah Young takes over and is the main guy in the running back spot for another year or two. I like the way that shakes out.
Mm-hmm.
But none of it will matter because we're playing with Monopoly money when it comes to eligibility now.
Yeah.
All right. Where do you want to go from here? I feel like... Go ahead.
I was going to say wide receivers.
Okay, sure.
Wide receivers are going to look a little bit different this year. Than obviously, we're pretty used to seeing Jonathan Johnson out there. Not going to see that this year. Got 2 grad transfers coming in Damon Hazelton and Kiki Chisholm, which both of these guys I am expecting a decent amount of production from. I've been hearing amazing things about Kiki Chisholm in camp. Like he's an NFL caliber wide receiver. We've heard those kind of rumblings about him. He's always showing up in the highlight videos that they post on social media. He's a long, rangy wide receiver with great hands. I really think he's going to get a ton of targets this year.
It's really fascinating with him and Hazelton. They're coming into Missouri with a very similar role from polar opposite ends of the football world.
Yes.
Chisholm coming from Division II football.
Yeah, he played at Angelo State. I had not even heard of them when he committed.
And there was some we talked about before on Twitter. A few Division II coaches were talking about how he is going to perform well at the Division I level. And then Hazelton, who is a proven commodity at a Power 5 conference. Those are 2 completely different ends of the football world. And we're almost expecting a similar outcome with them at Missouri this year.
Yeah, Damon Hazelton caught 14 touchdowns at the highest level of college football at Virginia Tech the last 2 years. So, it's a good point that these players are coming from complete opposite ends of the spectrum.
That's more touchdown receptions than the rest of the Mizzou roster combined, I'm sure. I didn't even look that up.
It might be. I think Damon Hazelton, again, is a little bit bigger wide receiver. I think he's 6'2", 6'3". We'll probably throw the ball up to him and see if he can win some 50-50s. But I'm excited
Just
about
need
both
the quarterback
of those guys.
to give it a shot this year.
Yeah, and don't forget about Jalen Knox. I think he'll probably be the third wide receiver that will see a lot of targets as well. I don't know. I want to be excited. I think it's okay to be excited about those wide receivers. So, we don't know a lot about those two guys, about those two grad transfers, but I think they've proven that they can excel. So,
yeah, I think I can follow you there. I would be legitimately worried if we didn't have Hazelton.
Yeah.
Just his experience, I keep coming back to that. That's going to be huge for him to be like the number one wide receiver. Mm-hmm. If we were relying on Jalen Knox or Kiki Chisholm to be the go-to guy, I'd be very concerned. But them being able to be the second guy and the third guy, I think that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty nice trifecta. But after those three guys, you definitely kind of have a drop-off. You've got Barrett Bannister, who's proven he can be reliable, but I definitely don't think he's like an every-down wide receiver.
I'm willing to give him a shot.
Dominic Jacinto has made some plays, but again, I'm not sure that we can really rely on him to be a difference maker.
Yeah, he and Knox both kind of up and down careers.
That's true.
What do you think about the young guys? So C.J. Boone and Maurice Massey both redshirted last year. They saw a little bit of game time. Mm-hmm. And then Jay Macklin, Chris Abrams-Drain, J.J. Hester, Chance Looper, all true freshmen coming in.
Yeah, I think C.J. Boone is probably more of a possession guy. Maurice Massey is probably kind of the home run hitter. I think J.J. Hester...
He's pretty big, too.
Yeah, he is. He's definitely a big guy, very athletic. J.J. Hester was the highest ranked receiver out of all those incoming freshmen. It's kind of hard to know where some of those guys stand whenever they're at the bottom of the depth chart, if you will. Maybe they aren't, but I would assume they probably are just because they're incoming. But out of that group, I think that probably J.J. Hester has a good chance to see the field. I know Toski Dove is a guy that has been in the program for a couple of years that hasn't really played a whole lot, but I think he's probably a redshirt freshman or redshirt sophomore, but I think that we'll see quite a bit of him this year as well.
Cool. Yeah, it seems like it's hard unless you're a 5-star top of the line guy, and even sometimes the lower end 5-star guys can't break out their freshman seasons. It seems like it really takes a special player to come in day one and contribute at the wide receiver position, making that jump.
Yeah, I wouldn't forget about Chance Looper either. His dad's on the coaching staff, obviously, but he was a pretty highly ranked recruit as well, who was on his way to Boise State before he made the flip. So he has a chance.
Boise State hates us.
See, yeah, you're probably right. He has a chance to see the field as well this year as well.
All right, I'm very intrigued by the tight end group. It's kind of, we're looking at a tight end group. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 names here on my list that have a combined 19 career catches for a total of 170 yards.
Yeah.
And 15 of that and 140 of that is Daniel Parker Jr.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for the tight ends this year. Daniel Parker Jr., like you said, has by far the most experience and still isn't a lot. He is a premier blocker, and he's very athletic. He can still go out and catch the ball, but I'm not sure I really rely on him to go for passes longer than 15 or 20 yards with very much reliability. Maybe he'll prove me wrong on that. I hope so, but he is a tremendous blocker, and I know they've used him in some other like run blocking situations as well. It's kind of like almost like an H-back, and he's really opened up some big holes that way as well. But it will be fascinating to see how they use him this year because there truly is just very little experience after Daniel Parker Jr.
So as far as a pass-catching tight end, we're looking at Brendan Scales, Logan Christopherson, Messiah Swenson, and Nico Hay.
Mm-hmm. Nico Hay got some good playing time last year as a freshman. Messiah Swenson obviously came in as a pretty heralded recruit. I just, without seeing any of them really play, I would have to think Messiah Swenson has the best opportunity to come in and be a reliable pass catcher.
Yeah.
I think he's probably the most athletic, probably one of the bigger guys. I think Brendan Scales, he's probably more likely to be more of a blocking role, but we really don't know. We just haven't seen any of the guys play very much, and I know Swenson tore his ACL, I think, in his first year on campus, so
right.
It's just been pretty limited experience for those guys. That will be fascinating.
We can finish off the offensive side of the ball by talking about the offensive line. Was, dare I say it, a detriment to the team last season.
That was one of the biggest surprises, I think, of the whole year was how poorly the O-line performed, especially in the run game. The pass game was still acceptable, I think, but they just really got blown off the ball a lot.
They gave Kelly Bryant plenty of time to not throw a deep ball, like in like every game that he played.
Oh man,
I'll never get past that.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about it.
They tried to maybe shore up the line a little bit by bringing in a transfer, Michael Maietti from Rutgers.
I like that.
Michael Maietti.
Yeah, I think that was a very needed transaction, just to give some kind of anchor the line.
Transaction? What are you trying to say? You're trying to say there's a transaction that brought him to Columbia?
No, maybe that was the wrong word, maybe. But addition to the line, with Tristan Castillo going to the NFL or trying to
going to the NFL draft.
Yes, that was nice to get him. Case Cook is probably the most well known, and he was actually just named a team captain, which is pretty cool to see. But we definitely have a few names. Hiron White,
Larry Borum.
So a couple names you recognize.
Bobby Lawrence.
Not a whole lot of production.
Yeah, one more note on Maietti. He started 33 games at Rutgers, and he was graded by,
Football Focus,
probably that, as he was the highest graded returning pass blocker in the Big Ten. Obviously, he wasn't ever going to return to the Big Ten, and now the Big Ten doesn't exist, as far as I'm concerned. So take that for what you will, but that's pretty good.
Yeah, that is very good.
Drake Heismeyer is a freshman who was a highly regarded recruit. Other than that, Thalen Robinson, Jack Buford, a couple of guys that could maybe contribute.
Yeah, I've heard good things about both those guys, Thalen Robinson, and obviously Jack Buford was a big-time recruit for Barry Odom at the time. A lot of bodies. I think Coach Drinkwitz said that they'll kind of move guys around a little bit. I don't think there's very many of them that are just like anchored to one position necessarily, but they'll
maybe just Maietti at center.
Probably they'll probably just take their five best guys and get them out there. But I'm a little nervous about that if I'm being perfectly honest. But
we a little plug here for our last two videos that we published were just excerpts of some obviously full episodes. But in the most recent excerpt, we talked about Coach Drinkwitz not watching film of his players. And as I was watching that back, and when I was looking at this offensive line, I thought, this is a group of players he really needs to watch film on from last year to see, obviously he's looking at them, he's watching them practice every day, but something wasn't quite working. And like I said, pass blocking was a little bit better, but something wasn't quite working in the run game. And I think you got to put a little bit of that on the running backs themselves. But it was a joint effort in how the running game just couldn't really do what it did the year before. So I think he's going to need to be creative with his offensive scheme and use some misdirection. I want to see it with Tyler Beatty, use him creatively. I want to see plenty of Tyler Beatty and Larry Roundtree on the field at the same time. And I think some creativity with what they're doing, moving people around from the skill position point of view, I feel like that would help the offensive line.
I remember last year that was something we talked about quite a bit. Was something we wanted to see was the run game get going. You know, they had a lot of kind of little runs. It was kind of like nickel and diming them a little bit with the run game early on, and we just weren't seeing any breakaway runs at all. And Larry Roundtree just not having much space to maneuver. You know, he's a bigger guy, but he has great agility, great footwork, and he was just not having much room to work with.
Are we missing anything else offensively? Do you want to?
I think that's it.
You think that's all the positions?
That's all the positions
All right,
that I can think of.
Did you want to maybe spotlight some players? I forget how you put it. You wanted us to pick what did you say?
A breakout player.
A breakout player.
Mine that I was thinking of is on defense. But,
oh, shoot.
If I was going to name one on offense.
Yep.
I would probably, like I said, I think Toski Dove is a guy that we'll see on the field that we haven't before. And whatever tight end steps up behind Daniel Parker Jr., whoever that is, I don't know. But I guess if I had to guess, I'd probably say Messiah Swinson.
Yeah. Well, you just took all the good ones.
That's true. I said two of them.
Well, here's the thing. I think it's going to be the year of Barrett Bannister. I think even if he doesn't, put up huge numbers, do anything too terribly flashy, I really think they're going to give him a proper shot. And I think he's going to be able to move the chains, be maybe that kind of underneath possession guy, maybe not the first option on most passing plays, but a guy that the defense maybe won't focus on as much and will pick up some targets. And just as long as he can be sure-handed, and he doesn't really need to be explosive. We got other guys that can do that. We just need him to be reliable and help.
I was about to say, reliable.
Reliable, just help move the chains when, especially, when the quarterback is being hurried, which could happen this year. Look for that guy kind of running those underneath routes. Hopefully Tyler Beatty's kind of doing the same thing.
That third down champion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially not having Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson. He's a basketball player going to Duke.
Yeah, I was going to say, who is that?
Jonathan Johnson. That's his name. Not having him, he was kind of played that role the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You think we see an improvement overall with the offense this year over maybe take second half of last year? It can't get much worse than that.
I was going to say, yes. It'll definitely be better than, I would certainly hope so, better than the second half of last year. As just generally, I'll say yes. Kelly Bryant just didn't quite provide what we were looking for last year. That the first half of the year, he had some moments.
He got dinged up along the way, which didn't help anything.
Yeah.
Wouldn't just pull the trigger on the deep ball.
I think the wide receivers will actually be better this year than they were last year. I think the run game will be better. So I think it's all going to come down on the quarterback and how they can perform. But I do think the offense will be better. I think the scheme will be better as well.
Yeah, and I'm ready for them to just lean on the running game. If they can get it going, just don't go away from it.
Yeah.
If you got two running backs, if the offensive line can do their job, I think we got two guys that can make it work.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving to the defensive side of the ball, we'll start with what do you think is this is actually kind of a tricky question. Obviously, Nick Bolton, the best player on the defensive side. What do you think is the best position group? Separate the defensive ends from the tackles.
I'd probably say safety. I think safety will be the best. I think the cornerbacks will surprise the most. But
I'm hearing a lot of optimism out of you. I like it, but...
Well, I haven't talked about the defensive line yet.
Oh, okay.
But obviously, Tyreek Gillespie and Joshua Bledsoe both are tremendous players, wonderful athletes. And
coaching staff has been talking about all offseason. They've been talking about
for like 2 years.
Yeah.
So, I think the safeties are going to be really, really good. My breakout player, my breakout candidate for this year is Stacy Brown, and he will probably play kind of the hybrid safety linebacker position that Ronell Perkins played last year. I would assume that's probably where they will fit him in, because I think he's too good to keep him off the field. I don't know if he'll just mainly play in kind of like third down situations, or if they'll kind of find a role for him on all 3 downs. I don't know, but
backup safeties, Martez Manuel and Jelani Williams.
Yeah.
I mean, when you've got some pretty heralded recruits that really haven't seen the field yet because of the upperclassmen in front of them just doing their job and doing it well, I mean, that's the recipe for sustained success.
Mm-hmm.
They can hopefully pass the torch to those 2 guys.
Yeah, hopefully though, just the entire secondary kind of takes a step this year. The cornerbacks, we talked about it actually pretty recently on another episode, but lost a couple guys, but return Jarvis Ware, return Adam Sparks, and we're going to add Ennis Rakestraw and some couple other guys that we've had in the program for a couple of years. I think that we will be pretty good at cornerback, and it'll be really interesting to see who wins the starting job. Will it be Jarvis Ware is a shoe-in.
Mm-hmm.
I think outside of Nick Bolton, he might be one of the best players we have on our entire team. So I think Jarvis Ware will definitely take a step this year. We'll see if he keeps trash talking as much as he did last year. And I think Ennis Rakestraw has a shot to win the other starting job, but they might kind of rotate guys a little bit in the other spot.
Cornerback is typically a rotational position anyway. Help me out here. Jarvis Ware kind of surprised everybody by starting game 1 this past season. We kind of, we're penciling in AC and Holmes all off season.
I think
then
you're right.
Week 1, top of the depth chart, Jarvis Ware.
Yep. You're exactly right.
Okay. So, all right. You mentioned the defensive ends. Did you say ends or just line?
Just the D-line in general.
Well, let's talk about the ends. Missouri has not been able to get a pass rush going for a little while now. And the pass rush has only come from the interior linemen.
Of guys that aren't there anymore.
Right. So we're looking at names that are familiar. Chris Turner, Jatorian Hansford, Isaiah McGuire, Trey Williams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Chris Turner and Trey Williams will probably be the best candidates to start. It's kind of that conversation. It's like they've been here, but is that a good thing?
Right.
Because neither one of them have really performed. And those guys, kind of talking about opposite ends of the spectrum earlier, these guys kind of the same thing. Trey Williams, super high-rated recruit, 4-star in Mizzou's backyard. Chris Turner, kind of an under-the-radar guy, kind of a 2-star player that we had pretty high hopes for. We're hoping that he might be Chris Harris, or Charles Harris, 2.0.
Or Chris Harris.
Chris Harris, yeah.
He's pretty good too.
He's okay. Kind of the low-rated recruit come in and dazzle. He hasn't quite done that, but I think he can. But
Benjamin Key, player that's coming in that maybe could make a difference.
Yes, I think he's the guy from Australia who hasn't played a whole lot.
Yeah.
But maybe kind of a high upside guy, doesn't have a
Throw
ton.
him out there.
Throw him out there, see what happens.
Yeah.
I think a guy to watch on the D end is Isaiah McGuire. I think he's probably one of the more talented guys they have. It's just he's young and hasn't played a whole lot. But I think that's a name that'll probably be a household name in the next year or two.
Sometimes I'm just going to say a name and just see what you say. Like Benjamin Key. Take it away.
I'm fine with that. It means I don't have to think of the name, so it's easier for me to.
As long as you have something to say about him.
Yeah.
Okay. Defensive line, the interior now. Kobe Whiteside.
Kobe Whiteside is going to be there.
Yep.
It's all going to come down to what can Kobe Whiteside do without Jordan Elliott? Because obviously last year he had a pretty solid season. He had a few sacks, and most notably, I remember he had a huge sack against Alabama on Tua last year. That obviously comes to mind as a
had
huge
a big game
play
against Arkansas at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what is he doing when Jordan Elliott's not taking up, not living in the minds of the entire offensive line?
Yeah. I'm really not sure what's going to happen. I'm not sure who's gonna start there. I think honestly Isaiah McGuire has a chance to even play some inside. I think Akil Byers has a shot to start there. Just kind of a bunch of guys. I don't know.
Montra Edwards.
Yeah. He's incoming freshman. We'll see. I would lean probably on the side that he probably won't play as much. Probably won't start, but he definitely might see a few snaps.
Yeah.
Might be one of those things where you just throw some guys out there and see what happens.
That's what I'm saying. Just give them all some snaps and see if anybody can do something.
Mm-hmm.
But
I
don't
need
know.
Nick Bolton to make about 200 tackles this year.
Okay, well,
We'll get
all we have left is the linebackers, but you mentioned Nick Bolton. Obviously, he's amazing. I wrote down here, we were joking right before we hit record about there being 5 Nick Boltons on the defensive side of the ball, how that would be,
That'd be
that's
nice.
all we need.
Yeah.
And so I want to actually imagine that real quick.
Okay.
So would we just put 2 Nick Boltons at linebacker?
Obviously.
Give me 1 as a safety. We don't need the safety, though. Maybe in some sets, he's in the defensive backfield.
Okay.
But if we got 2 at linebacker, 2 on the ends,
What
and
about
1...
3 linebackers?
Well,
Now that's something.
now you're thinking. Yeah.
I would take Nick Bolton as all 3 of my linebackers and my defensive ends.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah. I was just going to shore up the line a little bit extra, maybe, and put him on the interior and both ends.
Might as well.
Next to, just put him in.
I'll take him everywhere.
Him, Kobe White's, 3 of him and Kobe Whiteside on the line, and then 2 of him backing them up.
I love it.
Man, it'd be interesting to see. So, yeah, those are the linebackers. Nick Bolton. Thanks for everybody for listening.
Yeah. We really need Nick Bolton to stay healthy, first of all. Obviously, we went through heartbreak last year when we lost Cale Garrett.
We didn't know. You knew. I got to tell the listeners. I got to tell the viewers. I got to tell producer Cameron. Kyle knew what we had in Nick Bolton, I think, before he even played a game for Missouri. Because Kyle picked him in his 7-on-7 draft the very first time we did it. And I was like, who is Nick Bolton? And come to find out, he is a future preseason second-team All-American. Now, my question to you is, are they including the now defunct Big Ten and Pac-12 when they do those preseason All-American teams?
That is actually a wonderful
Or is that
question
just
that I do not know
the teams
answer
that
to.
are playing, the players that are actually going to play? I'm
I'm
going to assume it probably includes everybody.
That's what I was going to say, but I really don't know.
Yeah. So you were on him early, and now second-team All-America.
I can only hope that my other breakout candidates can even be like half as good as Nick Bolton was.
Yeah. But everybody else, kind of, most of us anyway, and obviously the more casual fans, were introduced to Nick Bolton when Cale Garrett went down last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's crazy to think how good Cale Garrett was to start that season, and we had a just as good of a player, if not a better player, who maybe just hadn't quite. I mean, Cale Garrett had just the most incredible plays. Like the individual play, the highlights belonged for the most part to Cale Garrett last year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the play where he saw that it was a backwards pass and went and scored a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody else knew what was going on. He had multiple pick sixes, I think.
I think that game that we went and saw, the West Virginia game, I'm pretty sure Cale Garrett and Nick Bolton both scored a defensive touchdown in that game. It's just wild how good they were together. But yeah, Nick Bolton, he kind of carried on the torch. He just remained that good all season.
Yeah.
I think my favorite play of Nick Bolton from last year is against Tennessee when they kind of had a goal line play and they had like a ball carrier. I can't remember if it was almost like a wide receiver or somebody that had the ball, but he was just coming at full speed. He's literally at the 1 yard line at full speed.
He's scoring.
And didn't score. Nick Bolton just absolutely
destroyed
like a
him.
brick wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, just destroyed him. And I think that when this time next year, or not this time next year, but at next year's draft, NFL draft, whenever we're seeing Nick Bolton highlights, I think that one will definitely be one that we see many times.
Oh, yeah, that'll be the go-to.
That was as impressive as a play as I've seen in college for a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah, that was incredible. There are other linebackers, though, that we probably should talk about.
Yeah. I think that Devin Nicholson will probably start, and he's a sophomore that played quite a bit at probably the second half of last year and played pretty well. He was kind of a low-rated recruit that kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't know a whole lot about him whenever he started playing last year, but he performed pretty well. So I think he has a pretty good shot to play on one of the outside linebacker positions. And then we've got an old-fashioned competition for that third starting spot between two guys that were both pretty highly rated recruits that have kind of underperformed or not really lived up to the expectations that we were hoping for. But those guys are Aubrey Miller and Chad Bailey. Aubrey Miller is probably a guy that most people are familiar with. He's a little bit older. I think he might be a senior, but kind of on the smaller side, but he's super, super fast, really good athlete. And same thing with Chad Bailey. He's kind of undersized as well, but super good athlete. And Chad Bailey was, I think, probably our highest rated recruit in the class he came in, whenever that was, like 2017 or 18. But both those guys, it will be nice to see them succeed and in the starting role.
Yeah. With regard to the defense as a whole, I'm just going to have to hope that Ryan Walters knows what he's doing. And I'm confident in that. And that, I mean, he's not going to have an easy job this season. The defense was pretty solid last year. I don't know. I think maybe, I feel like the back half of the defense can only prop up the defensive line so much. And as good as I think the safeties and Nick Bolton are going to be,
you can only cover like wide receivers for so long.
You can only cover wide receivers for so long. Yes, exactly. And I'm not confident that this cornerback group is going to be super sticky. And I think that they're going to need help from the defensive line. Mm-hmm. And I think the defensive line is not prepared to provide that help, at least based on what we've seen of these players from last year.
I think that if Missouri is unsuccessful this season and the defense is not as good as we hoped, obviously, I agree. That's what it was. It was the D-line just didn't get the push. The pass rush isn't there, because I really don't think that we're gonna be able to put the blame on the other positions. I think there's too much experience. I think there's too much prior success.
And I think what worries me the most is that we're just gonna get torched through the air a lot. I think that the linebackers and the safeties can step up and stop the run really well. I think you can't rely on your safeties to, be what is the anchor of your pass defense. It just is not going to work out. And so my fear is that teams are going to be inclined to just kind of let their quarterback sling it and air it out and try to throw the ball, 40 times against Missouri and just hope for the best.
Pull a David Blau on us.
Exactly. Or all the other backup quarterbacks that have haunted us for the last couple seasons.
Yeah. So
that's my fear. And I still think Missouri's run defense is going to be pretty strong.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're not. Losing Jordan Elliott is the biggest question mark for me, mm-hmm. because he contributed so much, even when he wasn't, sacking the quarterback, which was most of the time. He was still, just commanding the offensive line's attention.
Yeah.
And still making plays.
Yeah,
fighting through blocks to shut down runs.
Very special combination of being able to rush the quarterback from the inside, but also be a great run stopper. And I think, he was one of the highest graded defensive tackles in college football last year by Pro whatever they are, Pro Football Focus.
Shout out to them.
Shout out to those fellas.
I see your tweets all the time.
Yeah, but I mean, Jordan Elliott truly was one of the top 2 or 3 rated guys by them, and he's everywhere. And it truly, that will be one of the biggest question marks of the defense, is how do we replace that? And does Kobe Whiteside take a step? Are we able to bring in someone else that can help? Because we're not going to be able to get that interior push that I think we were kind of grown accustomed to last season.
Yeah, the good news is Drinkwitz has been hard at work recruiting defensive linemen and looking good for the upcoming recruiting class. So
that might be a strength in a couple of years.
Yep,
but
he has identified an opportunity for improvement, we think, and capitalized so far. Mm-hmm. So we have that to look forward to. We just talked about that whole team.
Yeah.
Who's going to return punts? Oh, speaking of punts, we should talk about the kickers.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure the punter is going to be the guy that transferred from Kentucky, McGinnis. Yeah. I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know his name. But he's a grad transfer. Harrison Mevis might be the kicker. He's a freshman. It might be the Kentucky transfer might punt and kick. I don't know. Who's going to return punts?
Elijah Young?
Maybe Jarvis Ware? I don't know.
Maybe Michael Wilson? Yeah.
Maybe.
Give him a shot.
Cade Musser?
Sure. Anything else? We talked about that team.
We talked about like everybody
Yep.
on the team, didn't we?
Yep.
Just about.
I love it. I could keep going, but we've hit an hour. That's probably all anybody wants to listen to. Plus 40 minutes.
Give us your breakout players. If you there's somebody that we didn't mention, maybe they're a little bit buried in the depth chart, or someone that we didn't talk a whole lot about, or maybe if you agree with us, let us know who your breakout player is going to be.
Yeah. Let me know why I should be a little bit more optimistic, because I'm not super optimistic. And we'll be really showing how optimistic or not optimistic we are next week when we break down the full the rosters this week.
Wow.
This
Again?
Yeah. Run it back. We're doing it again. We're breaking down the schedule next week, and we're going to figure out how many games we think this team is going to win.
What do you think? They're playing 10 SEC games or something?
Yeah.
Not very optimistic?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get to that. And then we're also going to do our 7-on-7 draft. So all these players that we talked about, we're going to be in a pool, a swimming pool.
Pool party.
Yep. And we'll be picking 7-on-7, and the catch is both sides of the ball must be played by the 7 players.
Can't wait.
So producer Cameron will be our commissioner.
Who's going to be our next Nick Bolton?
Exactly. We'll find out next week, and tell them where they can find us, I suppose.
All right. You can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
Where else can they find us? Where's the third one that I normally say?
Apple Podcast.
Apple Podcast,
That's the one
duh.
everybody listens to.
Of course. And we're on Twitter and Instagram at Mizzou Sports Pod. And you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
Yep. Check out twitch.tv/itsyeti. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you next week. Bottom night.